New World, the MMO published by Amazon, and this is the company's first successful game release, though it's hardly a smooth launch. There are a number of issues that have plagued it. Now, the player base is looking okay, but it's definitely diminishing slowly but surely, and one of the big issues with the game right now is just a lack of content. There's just not enough to do at the moment to sustain this game for the long run, so it's in desperate need of frequent and well-timed content releases. Beyond that, you've got economical issues like the deflation crisis that it's currently in the midst of. Because of how stingy the game is about giving out currency, there's just been a deflation where trading post items have gotten cheaper and cheaper to make up for the fact that there's not enough currency out there, and so the value of the currency has gotten a lot higher, and static costs like repairing items, which does not adjust to the trend of the economy, that's become exorbitantly more expensive because it's harder to earn money because the game itself doesn't give it out enough, and now the trading post items are cheaper because of that deflation, and so people are just receiving less currency and hoarding it. And then past all that, you've got the myriad technical issues or design flaws or oversights that have allowed people to do things in the game that they should not be allowed to do, or that's paved the road for some game-breaking elements. There are enough technical issues with the game that one of the top posts on the official New World subreddit with over 10,000 upvotes is, "New World is still in beta, change my mind." One of the earliest exploits discovered was a gold duplication bug that PC Gamer describes as follows. The exploit was discovered following the release of update 1.0.3, which finally brought server transfers to the popular MMO, a feature created to address the long server queues many players experienced at launch. Some players who attempted to transfer their characters to a different server were hit with a character persist failure error. Some players with this error discovered that if they sent gold to another player and then logged off and back in, the gold they traded away would magically return. In the MMO business, we call that a gold dupe exploit. Now, this is one bug that Amazon very quickly fixed and warned that whoever used the exploit will be banned from the game, though honestly I imagine that the world of New World could use a bit of a currency infusion given the potential deflation crisis. But an exploit is an exploit, and if left unaddressed for long enough, then it could really have a detrimental effect on the game, so they patched that up. Now, a more serious issue is the discovery of an invulnerability trick that is hilariously easy to pull off, and there's actually a video on YouTube that showcases this. All you have to do is put the game in windowed mode, and then anytime you click on the window and drag it around, it pauses aspects of the game that can result in players being invulnerable. Now, it has since been fixed. This is days old, weeks old, and Amazon has gotten on it, but the existence of this bug still was something that people were baffled by, and it looks something like this.
Alright, go ahead. Start hitting me.
So notice how this guy is just holding the window and dragging it around while the other player is attacking the player who is using the exploit to show how it works. And he's smacking him around. You can see the health bar lowering.
So that's my first invincibility timer, which is normal. And you'll see that it'll run out there and hit me again. Boom. There it is. Another invincibility timer. And again, it will infinitely give me the invincibility perk, making it so I will never die. This grants immortality over and over and over. So I'm literally immortal.
So what should have been a temporary effect becomes permanent while a user is dragging their windowed New World game session around, and as long as that window is being dragged around, the player is straight up completely invincible, completely immortal. Fortunately, because you have to drag the window around, the player can't do much of anything while they're in that glitched out invulnerable state, but during PvP sessions, there are a number of ways that this could be exploited to the point where it could be game-breaking. It's definitely a good thing that a fix did come out, though, you know, it was days and days before Amazon finally resolved this particular issue. In fact, according to PC Gamer, the invulnerability trick was discovered 13 days ago as of the recording of this video, and it wasn't until October 29th, just 2 days ago, that the patch that fixed this problem finally came out. So for that period of time, no doubt plenty of people were exploiting this in some way. Making matters worse was the discovery that this vulnerability could be further enhanced by dragging the window around while you're dodging. There are invincibility frames in this game. It is more action-oriented combat where you can time your dodges just right to evade certain attacks, and if you start dragging the window around as you're rolling, as the invincibility frames are kicking in, then you won't even lose health because you're in that invulnerable state until you let go of the window. And this is showcased by YouTuber Josh Strive Hayes, who kind of showcased this, and here's what that looks like.
There we go. I'm in the middle of a roll right now. I have frozen my client in the middle of a roll.
So right now the game's still playing out, but on the screen it looks like it's paused, and the enemy is probably attacking the player, though you cannot really see it. But by the time this video is unpaused, or the game is unpaused from the dragging the window state.
And then press escape, which will immediately close the menu overlay. Let us see the game. Watch my health. Not changed.
So because dragging the window around caused the game to freeze the iframe state of his character, no damage was taken. This is an even greater exploit than the previous one that I showed, where you have to lose a bunch of health and then kick into that brief invincibility mode that stays permanently, whereas here, it's you straight up don't even lose any health because you're in iframe's invincibility mode. I'll say again, as of October 29th, this has been resolved, but for many days, this was something that players could exploit, and it's obviously not a good thing. It's led people to speculate that New World is client authoritative. Now, I'm no expert in this field, but from what I've read, I believe client authoritative means that a lot of what happens on the client side dictates what occurs in the game, whereas a more secure way to do it is for the server side of things to dictate much of what occurs. That makes it less likely that on the client side, players can inject some elements that would allow them to change aspects of their session that would give them certain advantages. If a game is too client authoritative, then players can tweak the client in their favor, whereas if things are more on the server side of things, then obviously that cannot be tweaked unless you go ahead and hack the servers or something. But yeah, because something as simple as putting a game in windowed mode and dragging the window around could affect the game in this way, a lot of people came to the speculation that maybe this is a client authoritative MMO, but in this blog post, the developers denied that the game was client authoritative and explained why on the server side of things this issue cropped up, and I won't delve into the technical details because again, I'm not an expert in this field, but I'll link this in the description below, or you can pause the video here. Regardless of the cause of the issue, it was still very much a baffling issue that's only been very recently resolved. And then beyond all that, people discovered that perks were pretty exploitable because they're fundamentally broken. A player on Reddit who claims to have gone 21-0 in their wars so far, understanding which perks are broken and useless and which are working a little too well. And there's a Reddit post that details all of this. 21-0 in wars, my top 3 game-breaking PvP exploits/bugs. And obviously, if perks don't work as they're described, it's very hard for players to maximize their character's effectiveness by choosing the right perks, because they're kind of playing a guessing game of which perks work as I think they're meant to work based on its description. Now, I previously mentioned the gold duplication glitch that has since been ironed out. At least that boosted an economy that needed boosting, even though obviously it's an exploit that was not meant to be. But there was another issue with gold and currency that was discovered that would make the potential deflation crisis worse. So this was detailed in this forum post whose headline reads, "Receive no gold for selling, house compensation error." Basically, this user tried to sell something on the auction house, the item sold, but the gold was not received. And as it turns out, this bug has something to do with whether the player is online or offline. If an item at the auction house is sold while the player is online, then they do receive the gold, but if you're logged out, if you're offline, and while you're logged out, an item in the auction house that you put up is sold, then you don't receive the gold. And this was something that this user tested out and confirmed in this update paragraph. Here's somebody else on the official New World subreddit who brought this up. Sold auctions do not pay when you're offline. We have tested it multiple times with multiple characters. This isn't hard to test and reproduce every time. Number 1, put an item on the auction house for 100 gold. Number 2, log out and wait until your character is no longer in the world. Number 3, have a friend buy the item. Number 4, log back in. Number 5, the pre-order is complete and you do not receive the gold. And you can see by the number of upvotes here, over 7,000, just how many people have encountered this problem. Now, developers have caught wind of this problem and did respond 3 days ago, addressing the issue by stating we're currently testing a fix for this and will be deploying it as soon as we are confident. Players who encounter this issue will receive their missing gold items when the fix goes live. I guess we'll see how all that goes, because there are times when stuff like this happens where developers will do their best to refund whatever items were lost because of a technical issue, but aren't able to do so because of certain complications. So hopefully that won't be the case here, especially given how sparse and how valuable gold is in this game because of the deflation spiral that it's currently in. Players need that gold. You know, it's bad enough that players receive so little gold from doing activities in the game or from the deflated prices in the trading post, but to just not receive gold at all for items sold because of a technical issue in the current state of the game, like, that's pretty damn bad. Now, here's a particularly baffling oversight by New World. According to IGN's headline here, New World reportedly has a vulnerability that makes it possible to crash players through the text box, the chat box. And the reason such a thing is possible is because people can actually type HTML code in the chat and execute that code to display images or kick you from the game. Here's another Reddit user who confirmed this by stating people have started linking items in global chat that crash your game when you look at it. The exploitation of such an oversight will enable trolls to flood the chat with links that crash people's games, and it'll make it a lot harder for players to find legitimate links to items, and that basically cripples this particular feature. Now, the ability to input HTML code in the chat isn't always used for nefarious reasons. At times it's used for inputting an image of sausages, with this Reddit user being pretty entertained by this with a headline that reads, "Absolute hero on UK Greg's server posts a massive sausage in global." And this is one thing that's gained a lot of traction, with another post reading, "Chat in my server, WTS large sausage," and there it is in its full scale. Here's another Reddit user showing a video where somebody posted an image of a raw chicken. Now, while images like sausages and a raw chicken are innocent enough and maybe kind of funny, you can imagine how trolls could eventually exploit this problem and post less savory and more nefarious images that could prove to be offensive, and obviously that is not an ideal situation. But more urgent is how all of this allows people to post links that crash other people's games, and not to mention it is a genuine security risk. And if you want full details on the technical aspects of this, there is a video by Josh Strive-Hayes titled "New World is Even More Broken," where a programmer goes into detail as to how such an exploit or such an oversight could have happened and how it could be used in nefarious ways. Now, Amazon did get on this relatively quickly, understanding the urgency of this particular problem, and here's an article from PC Gamer from yesterday that reads, "Amazon deploys fix for New World exploit that lets players crash the game using chat." In an official forum post, one of the community managers for New World posted this: "Greetings, adventurers. Earlier today, we discovered an issue where players were able to post images and other links in the chat that resulted in unsavory behavior. We have enabled a fix that should resolve this issue and prevent players from abusing and exploiting this feature. This should already be enabled in each region. Thank you for your patience while we investigate it and resolve this issue." The hope is that this particular issue is genuinely resolved and that players won't find other workarounds down the line. But so far, the developers are saying we have patched this up, and I've yet to hear of reports that the fix is not working properly. And then we have reports of little things like this Reddit post whose headline reads, "So I found a bug. If you quickly swipe over most icons on the map, they just expand, like they just don't stop." Found this quite funny. And the video, it shows this off. He's just kind of rubbing the icon, if you will. And you can see that it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. The reason being that when you hover over it, it expands a little bit to show that you're highlighting it, but before it shrinks back, as you keep swiping back and forth, it just keeps growing and growing and growing because of the way it's been programmed or whatnot. And this is nothing too game-breaking. I assume that if you exit out of the map and come back in, that all resets. But it's just paired with all the other technical and design issues and oversights that's causing a lot of concern, that's making people feel like this game is very much still in beta. Some of this stuff can be game-breaking enough, disruptive enough to the entire experience. And while Amazon has been relatively quick about fixing some of this stuff, it's still worth noting that this was the state of the game at launch, and hopefully things will improve a lot more down the line and more content will be added to bolster what is a very solid foundation. But, you know, this is just very inconvenient and a reason to not play this game in its current state, wait for it to be bolstered by more fixes and more content that'll make it a more well-rounded experience. The potential is there, but right now, because of the economy that's not well balanced, because of content that's currently lacking, and because of technical issues like this that are woefully disruptive, you know, it's causing this game to lose a significant number of players, or it's causing it to not grow as much as it could if it were a more successful, less rough release. Though you never know what the future holds for this title. You never know if it can make a recovery with compelling content, updates, and fixes. So we'll see what happens, but until then, let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on some of these bugs, glitches, issues, flaws, you name it, and what your experience has been like with New World if you've been playing this title. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.